Incremental greetings. This video is a recap of the 36th year anniversary of Space Repetition System, Space Repetition Software, or SuperMemo, because SRS started with SuperMemo. So we had Piotr Wozniak and Krzysztof Bidalek for the fourth time, for fourth event that we do this. And I will try my best to convey the main points, main ideas, and I will rearrange the order. So what, according to my criteria, it's about what I think is interesting for most people to the less people, more niche kind of interest. So what was discussed, among other things, was the scheduling algorithm, SuperMemo for the phone, the API, artificial intelligence, and some other topics. But wait. That's the 36th anniversary, but the first one was the 33rd anniversary. And open source SuperMemo and SuperMemo API. Here it is, and it's blank. What happens with incremental reading that Piotr follows is that some articles doesn't ever have a finished state. So the point is that is not new. It was discussed, and look at this. 34th anniversary. Open source SuperMemo. Boom. 35th. Open source. And by the way, that's the page I created. Here are more details that I will cover, and I also have a transcript of the questions that Piotr answered ahead of time via text. If you want to check this out, link in the description. Last year, SuperMemo World, they released a paper about a fine-tuned model of SM, SuperMemo, using machine learning. So Bidalek himself, the CEO, he shared this in Twitter, that it's a comparison of different scheduling algorithms, and turns out that yes, SM17, which by the way is not the last one, it's 18, performed pretty well, better than SM2 from the 80s. But with machine learning, it was still better than the heuristically based SuperMemo algorithm from expert data. But what happened? When they did this research, SRS was still not published. Because when you publish a paper, that means that the experiment was done quite before the publishing date. But what Krzysztof Bidalek said is that, wait, we paused further tests until releasing SM API. We should be ready soon. How soon? If it's the 33rd anniversary that was already mentioned. Well, turns out now, for real, it's soon. But wait, we have to go into the details here. Because you may have thought SuperMemo API as an external tool that I can have anything, Anki, whatever app I use to create cards, and use the API to schedule this according to the algorithm, right? Oh wow, wonderful, what a superpower. Wait, that's not going to happen. Why? Because the API is for SuperMemo. That means it will be used internally with supermemo.com, the language app from the website and the phone. So they can take this out from the code, isolate the algorithm, so they can run tests in different versions of the algorithm, so they can research and see what's the weak points, the strengths, and iterate and improve that algorithm. And that's it. Users won't be able to use this API, unlike it was thought before. And now why? Because now we have SRS, the free space repetition software scheduling algorithm from Jared Ye. And you may think like this is like a competition, right? Who will do the best algorithm? Who will succeed? Stuff like this. But for now, they are different things. They are optimizing different things. Because SRS, for now, up to date, is optimized just for flashcards. And space repetition, that's it. It doesn't include the incremental reading. for now. I know that in the future that won't be true. Can't wait to see that happening. So what happens now that since now we have another different player, that even though according to their stats, it's not as good yet, SuperMemo is better, but it's just a tiny bit better. So while releasing an API, closed sourced, paid API, just for a marginal gain, right? So for a business perspective, makes little sense, or less than before. So if it didn't happen in 4 years, without SRS, now it's not going to happen, just internally. So the users won't see anything. Unrelated to the API was, hey, what about SuperMemo for the phone? Something that has been heavily requested every year. And Piotr will always think, well, you don't require to use a phone. Putting aside his stubbornness, is wait, now there's a solution. There's a possible solution. It's not a full-fledged SuperMemo app for the phone, obviously. But wait, what if SuperMemo for Windows, the incremental reading app that we know, can sync to the cloud with supermemo.com, the web app or phone app for the language? Because yes, it's a different demographic. It's based for people who just buy pre-made courses just for language. But wait, there's a section that you can create your own cards. So the cards you create doesn't have to be about language learning. So that could be synced with your collection. And even if you only do items, the flashcards, and you cannot see your topics, you cannot search your collection among many other things, or import. At least you could use SuperMemo on the phone as a companion. That means that, well, I do my incremental reading on the computer, but while I'm commuting, I'm on the gym, or I'm laying on the couch chilling, I could do some of my reps on my collection, sync this, and when I go back to the computer, I will have done some of the outstanding items already. And one of the ideas I had is, okay, perhaps that's too much because there's a lot of information to sync. The file size, the images will take too much space, will be too expensive. What about a trade-off? That I could only sync a specific concept group. So let's say I have a concept about language or about history. That for me, when I do this concept, I won't do much searching online or use prompts with AI or reformulate a lot my items. So it's something that is, if I use the phone just to rate my recall, and that's enough. Or perhaps the other idea is to have a priority-based threshold. That, hey, I want to sync the top 10% of my collection. So the items, whatever items are in that priority range, sync them. And whatever is outstanding, I can use my phone app for this. That's an idea. I don't know if they are going to implement it, but I know that for some people, the lack of a dedicated phone app is a big thing. Creates too much friction, and it becomes a deal breaker, and they move on. So something that I don't know if we could see in the future, but so let's see if people are interested in that. And what I'm pretty sure, those are not their words, but it's some kind of a speculation. But based on what I have seen already in some websites, in some wikis, is that if this is going to happen, it will be in the next version of SuperMemo. Perhaps not even SuperMemo 20 or 21. That, hey, you want to sync your collection on the phone? Well, upgrade to SuperMemo 20. Stuff like this. Because the trend now with SuperMemo is that every single release has less and less new features. It's not such a big jump as before. Not only that, Piotr also mentioned that SM-18, SM-18, the version of the algorithm, it's not going to be updated. So the only updates will be bug fixes. That's it. End of the story. So, no better scheduling, no major updates. So what you can ask at least is some kind of mobile support, and that's about it. Now changing slightly topics. Someone asked about longevity. That well, Piotr and Christoph Bidelek, you are in your 60s. So do you worry about longevity? Because now you're closer to death, right? And Peter said some interesting things. First, is that he doesn't fear death, even now if he is older, therefore closer to the end of life. He doesn't care. Unlike on his 20s, that he will worry more about death and therefore will be more inclined to learn, to gather knowledge about longevity. Now, what's the point of, in his 60s, what's the point of learning about longevity if he doesn't care? So the usefulness of this knowledge is less for him. Makes sense that because of that, he's learning other stuff. And according to him, without specifying what exactly, he said that he's creating new concepts. That means that he's exploring new areas of knowledge that he hasn't learned before. Therefore, he prefers to learn all of that before longevity to maximize his lifespan. And I asked, well, what about retirement? And this question was a hidden question, we could say. Because one of the, let's say, assumptions I made is, well, everything in SuperMemo is proprietary, but once you retire, so therefore you no longer have the requirement of the trade secret to monetize your work. You can just open it to the society, to humanity, all of your work and research, and open your algorithm and all of the details. But well, he said, retirement, retired to what? So I'm pretty sure that he will work until he can. He said that as long as you are healthy, you should not worry about your brain. So, at least how I interpreted his message is that he will work beyond the age of retirement. So he will spend and have spent all of his life, among other things, but researching how memory works in humans. That's a big deal. It's a lifelong dedication, a lifelong pursuit, the curiosity to understand how memory works. So therefore now I will rephrase my theory, my hypothesis, that if he open source all of the trade secrets, will be post-mortem, not in retirement. I'm going to the complete opposite. What about spaced repetition for kids? As someone asked. You may have seen this already in the community or in the internet, especially parents that use some kind of spaced repetition software with their children. So the children is not actually using it directly. It's through their parent who asks the questions, uses the software, clicks here, rates the recall, all of the details. But the question is, when is the good age for this? When is there some point that it's too early? What happens, sadly, is that most of the time, the early exposure of a spaced repetition is by the parents and in a coercive manner. So this will be true. It will be the best if children do this because they want to, following their own curiosity. Then, another question is, what will be the optimal order? Because Piotr, he first created spaced repetition software in the 80s. Then incremental reading on the 2000. And according to him, it's likely that the best is the other way around. That a kid first learn how to read. Once you know how to read, is iterate on some aspects of incremental reading, not everything. And one of the components is spaced repetition. Because keep in mind, incremental reading is a superset of spaced repetition. So the doing the formulation of flashcards, formulation of knowledge, this will come later. First the reading. So now, and not only that, is that now has changed because now we have artificial intelligence. The availability to knowledge is a lot faster and easier than before when Piotr discovered or created spaced repetition. So we'll see the future. People who start today at 10-year-old of age, how they will learn all of that. Because now there's no constriction that, hey, you can only do spaced repetition because incremental reading has not been invented yet. More or less in this aspect. Next, you know that SuperMemo.com is about language learning, and they added some features of artificial intelligence. So what Christoph Bidelek said is that the feature of language learning with AI is about immersion. You just don't do one repetition over and over. So you do one specific session just answering questions about language or sentences, definitions, whatever that may be. So the key point is immersion. Second is the seamless speaking. That I don't have like a sentence bank or a vocabulary list. That, hey, I will learn the 500 basic Spanish verbs or vocabulary about technology or whatever that may be. So I just have a conversation, role-playing with a bot. And based on that conversation, I will learn some new words or expression. And the AI will create the flashcards for that. And on top of that, let's pretend the cards we see here are the flashcards created by the AI based on the conversations. Is now I will see those cards again, but always with a different touch, a different color. That yes, I'm testing the same phrase or word, but AI can generate context for me. So therefore, the sentence would be slightly touched or the same expression in a different context. So I'm being tested with a different subtle, different way. So therefore, I don't have the feeling that I'm doing the same repetition. I have seen this in the past, and I'm just repeating this so I can put this in my long-term memory. So more or less, that is the scope of SuperMemo.com. That is super ambitious, but they are doing something already. They have memo chat, which basically from any point. I don't use this software myself, but based on what he said and the marketing is that in any point, in any flashcard, you can start a conversation, role-playing. You can do follow-ups because at the end of the day, it's just ChatGPT. Or, hey, you just made some grammatical mistake or typo, let's say, in this case in Spanish. So you get corrected, and what happened? That didn't exist in the course. So therefore, what you can do as a user is that you can create those cards in your own cards, memo cards, that could be also synced with your incremental reading collection, the idea we shared a while ago. This is more immersive. It will be also easier to remember that I'm not just going through a list that has been pre-done. It's something I had a conversation with. It's more human, because at the end of the day, language learning with AI, yes, we said that the key is immersion for the human perspective. But for the software perspective, let's say, is that I can generate content. So therefore, the content and the context is more similar to the real world. Well, I will use that phrase or language Therefore, what I do in my repetitions, in my space repetition software, is a lot closer to what I do in reality. It's a win-win situation. And then someone asks, well, if I am about to learn a language, what's the best way? And Peter obviously said with incremental reading, which there are some details here that depends on the language, depends on the proficiency you already have, and other details. I won't cover this here because that was actually not discussed, was only mentioned, and I will do a standalone video on that. And to wrap up, one of the follow-up emails from Wozniak is he said that, thank you, Palace. That's my nickname. It's my surname is Palau, which means palace in English. Thank you, Palace, for this initiative. Without you, we will still live in our own shell. Which I don't take the full credit because those events in the community started with Alexis, and then I just contributed. My role was just a tiny role, but then I assumed more, and the last 2 years it has been only me, just me, organizing all of those events, which I do for the community. That, bro, you have an opportunity to talk firsthand with the creator of Space Repetition, that he only talked through some wikis, and it's really rare to have a one-on-one conversation, one-to-many, but a live conversation. It's a big deal. Not for me anymore, because now I have conversations with him, voice calls or even video calls. So I think for the community that is awesome. Like it was me the first year when I didn't interact with him personally. And I hope we can do this until one of us dies or is unable to do it because of illness. Because incremental reading is when you really make the click. It's not a method. It becomes a lifestyle. This means you will internalize it for life until the day you die. So those have been my 2 cents of the event. Hope this has been useful for you, some insights. Speak your mind in the comments, and as always, see you incrementally.